Hello everyone, it's Infinity Gamer here, and I'm going to be talking about May releases. And not just May releases, I actually have a lot that I want to go through in this video, but I'm going to start with the May releases because that's what's on the title and that's what's promised, and I will feel bad if I don't deliver on at least the bare minimum of what this video should include. So the May releases include quite a lot of things. I've got a few of them here, and I'm going to go through the specific ones that I have so that we can discuss them, see why they're so cool, and see what's going on. I'm going to start with what may be one of the most humble of releases, and that is the Warcor. The Warcor is one of those units that you generally throw in because you've got 3 points spare, but it's actually amazing how many lists I start with pretty much a Warcor, and then if I need the extra 3 points I can get rid of it, but it always packs a punch. And those of you that have played against the Warcor will realise that very quickly in ARO the Warcor can prove to be its weight in gold. Not only can it take a full order or more, depending on how well it's doing, to dispatch the humble Warcor, and that's only 3 points that you're losing in relation to that and in regular order, but it can just flash pulse attacking pieces and render them redundant for the rest of the game. This is the new sculpt Warcor. There's a couple floating around which have been released over the years. This one is pretty cool, really robotic, very autonomous. It's kind of too cool to be a Warcor. Like, Warcors for me are kind of like a little bit like, what are you even doing on the battlefield? And then you've got this thing, which actually looks like a lot of investment's gone into making it so that you can take some pictures and log some war crimes that are being committed. The Warcor, flash pulsing, I mean, you've been up against it, chances are, a dozen times. Flash pulsing on whip 13, which is higher than you'd expect something as silly as a 3-point Warcor to be. I generally take the 360 visor version, mostly because as like an ARO for things coming into my deployment zone, things sneaking up behind, and it basically means that if you put it right, there's not a good angle against it apart from for ranging. The journalist level 1 +3, I still don't really know what role that plays. I'm sure it's mission specific or something like that, but it would be cool if it actually meant something. And if it does, it just hasn't come up in any games, so clearly doesn't mean enough for it to matter. That's all I can really say for the Warcor. The new sculpt's really cool, but the profile itself is very standard, very basic, often a filler when you've got an awkward 3 points at the end. But if you don't have a Warcor in your list, you probably will want one at one stage, and this sculpt is definitely the one to be getting. The next one I want to talk about is a bit of a tricky one for me. It's the Demonist Observant from Bakunin Nomads. The sculpt, as with pretty much everything Corvus Belli are releasing nowadays, is very cool, which means I'm in a pickle with the Demonist Observant because I love the unit. I really love the little demon that comes with it. It's really cool. This is kind of in the similar thread for those that are familiar with the Alpha in 012 and the Ariadna, not Ariadna, the Aleph one, which I run all the time, and now can't remember it for the life of me. Well, I used to run all the time. This is very similar. It's kind of like a human with a guard buddy. This one just looks 10 times cooler than all the others, which is the main thing against it, and it's obviously Bakunin and all that. The thing I struggle with the Demonist Observant is being able to put it in my lists. The reason for that is because while it's cool and I can see a point, it's also expensive. You're looking at 32 to 36 points. Now the one I want to be taking is the Demonist +1 Lieutenant order, because I do occasionally take some NCO in my Bakunin lists. That means I'm paying 36 points for something with a Vulcan shotgun, which is good in close range, but not really good if anything kind of gets the jump on it from a bit of a distance. Biometric visor, fine. ECM hacker -3, also okay. It is heavy infantry, so that is fairly handy to have. The things it also brings that I quite like are counterintelligence. There's not a lot of that in Bakunin. In fact, this may be the only one that has counterintelligence, and I like to be able to take that because sometimes I'm running my order pool a bit light with Bakunin. It's got Decoy 1, which is great, and it's probably where the money comes into it, is that there's the decoy version. So if it does get pinned down, if you deploy it right, there may be a bit of a shell game as to which one's which. It's got guard, which is brilliant when it's CCS 20. It's got martial arts level 2, religious troop, a whole bunch of that. The thing that I think I struggle with here, so as Lieutenant, is I think it's, while the decoy gives it some protection, I think it's too obvious for a lieutenant. And so something's going to come for it, and then how well is it going to attack? Yes, you've got guard, Then you've got the Vulcan shotgun, but it's very easy for something to outrange that depending on the terrain and the placement. So the model, hugely cool. Like, one of my favorite sculpts. I mean, I think this is definitely really up there with one of my top sculpts in Infinity at the moment, and I want to keep it, assemble it, paint it and all that sort of stuff just to have it in my collection and keep it close to me. But in reality, I don't know that it will see a lot of table time with my playstyle with Bakunin. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts. You know, do you take the Demonist Observant in your Bakunin or your Nomad lists? How do you run them, and how do you find that they make up that point differential? Because it is cool, and I will basically find any excuse to run it, even if it's only once. I think I'll spend more time painting it than playing it, which is a huge shame because I love it. And that's probably a little bit my fault, not being able to play such a cool unit properly. Next, we're going to go with a unit that I love to hate, and that is Atalanta. Atalanta is an LF sniper that is ridiculously good in her own right. So looking at what you've got here, you've got MSV2, which is great on any sniper. If you've watched my best snipers in Infinity, you'll see that MSV2 is a key consideration in how high they rank. You've then got two flavors of Atalanta. There is the hidden deployment, which is a great threat. And to be honest, even if your opponent knows there's likely to be a 44-point Atalanta on the table, yes, she's not generating new orders, but as an ARO piece that could be anywhere, and this is scary. Maybe not Noctifer scary, but pretty close to Noctifer scary. And then the other one is Total Reaction, which is useful when, you know, you've got a Burst 2 multi-sniper. It's good. I mean, both are great. I don't think there's actually a standout version. From what videos I've seen of people who do play Atalanta, it's very much a preference as to how you like to play. Do you like the shock of an ARO piece, or do you like to have Burst 2 in your ARO? Like, it's, yeah, both are great in their own situations. MSV2 shock BS attack, which is good against small things, although lots of things obviously have BS shock immunity. At least some good things have shock immunity, but you can take off like a really basic line trooper very easily. Marksmanship, that's actually where the money goes, really. Marksmanship is excellent on this unit. Yeah, it takes out a really big consideration for something that's, you know, moving cautiously or is hold up in cover. Obviously you are paying for it. It's 1.5 SWC and it's 44 points, as I've said. The Timbot is the little model that you can see there, which you can't see hugely well. Timbot, which has Discover Reroll, which is really quite cool. If you're up against like you got MSV2, you're up against a heavy camo list or impersonators, this is quite good. So she's medium infantry. She is expensive, but I think she's worth all the points. At 44 points, she could do a lot in a reactive turn and also an active turn, depending on who you're up against and what you're up against. Not a lot of, well, there is quite a lot of smoke actually. I was getting confused. Myrmidons have got smoke. I could look because I've got their list open here, but that would be a distraction, and I'm already distracted enough. So it could be good for a smoke screen, or is it that Aleph have? No, that's Pano. So really good. The only thing that confuses me about Atalanta is that she is a gamer's NCO and Spotbot, but she doesn't have NCO. Which is confusing when Corvus Belli loves to put things like NCO or Specialist Operative in the names of stuff, and then they don't have that ability. Like, some of us simple-minded people just get confused really easily, guys. Can you just dumb it down for us? I'm going to go for the complicated one next for me, which is the Ariadna Reinforcements pack. It's complicated because I had to do some research on pronunciation so I don't embarrass myself like I always do, because even something that's based on like Highlanders and Scotland has some special pronunciation, and that's a little bit because this is the Merovingian version of flavour of Ariadna mostly, which means there's a little bit of French in there, which, you know, I'm trying to learn, but sadly they haven't covered werewolves in Duolingo yet, so not that good. What do we have? We have the Reinforcements pack Ariadna. In it, we have a whole bunch of stuff. And cool stuff that you would want to use when you then look at the fire team compositions, which I will go through shortly. We have one Lugaroo with a viral rifle. We have one with a boarding shotgun, an Apache with a chain rifle, a Breeze Guard with a marksman rifle, one with a heavy rocket launcher, and then we have a Moblo with a Spitfire AP. That's some heavy hitting stuff. That's some of the best stuff. So when I look at the Ariadna fire teams list, there's a lot that can mix together, and I think that's I actually get quite excited about reinforcements packs when it's not here's the one way to play reinforcements, when it's a combination of like here's a way to play reinforcements, but then there's also a couple of different units that actually would make you go, oh, do you know what, that fireteam composition wasn't quite something I loved, and then it goes, well, actually just use these existing models that you have. Now obviously with proxying being such a thing in Infinity, you don't always need to worry about if you've got all the models for it, but I do love it when a box actually comes with pretty much everything you need. So when we look at the reinforcement packs, we've got the Lugaroo reinforcements is the Lugaroo reinforcement group, which you can have obviously 5 to make a core if you want to, but you can also run a duo or a Harris for that. There's then the Breesguard reinforcement, which again can be a duo, Harris or core. You can have obviously 2 duos, 1 Harris, but only with the reinforcements mod. Then you've got the 2 other things in here as well, which is the Moblo and the Apache can be reinforcements in either of those. Now, the Apache reinforcement has the Lugaroo keyword, so can go in that and kind of keep the cohesion like pure, if you're that way inclined. And then the Moblo and Apache could then also go in the Breesguard if you really fancy having a mix, if you need the numbers. So that's one thing I love about this set, is that it can be played in multiple different ways depending on where you're leaning or what suits your play style. And then obviously they've got, as I said, the heavy hitters in this. Some of the models are cool. I love the fact that they've got more of that, what I would call like the Cosmoflot-esque style with these Ariadna models, which are the heavy armor, the helmets. Now looking a bit Riot Police, but they've still got like the flowy robes. I never really loved it's one of the reasons why I didn't lean heavily into collecting Ariadna very early on. I didn't love the style of the models, but a lot of the Cosmoflot era synths stuff has really got me liking Ariadna. Still unsure as to whether it's enough to play them, but I think that's more their play style, and the fact that we've got a guy in our local group who you would know as Battle Kiwi, who plays Ariadna exceptionally well. And so one thing I don't want to do is play a faction that someone plays a lot better than me, so that I have my rubbishness highlighted against me every time I play. At least in this way I can go, oh, that's the faction. It's not me. Not because I'm rubbish at all. Lastly on the list of models I want to talk about is the Nightshade action unit. I'm not saying this just to last just because it's 012, although that is a key factor, but also because I've actually been hanging out for this model because the profile is very cool and the model has not disappointed. I think it's one of those ones that's going to be impractical to play because the style is one of those ones where there's like swords all over the place and arms outside of the base. So when you're trying to tuck it into a corner or be sneaky, it's kind of going to be like, sorry, I'm actually facing that way, but the sword means I've got to face over here and actually I'm in a different quadrant. But the Nightshade is great. We get a lot of stuff for the points that we're spending here. Obviously camouflage, courage, forward deployment plus 8 inches, hidden deployment, which is quite cool. Haven't tried that style yet. Martial arts level 3. You'd hope so with a big sword like that, but that doesn't always mean anything in Infinity. Mimetism -6, which is great. And that's something that I've always complained that kind of like Starmada, 012, like had a little bit of, but not really a huge amount, is that Mimetism -6, forward deployment, hidden deployment, infiltrating type stuff. This isn't quite infiltrating, but it's close. Stealth, super jump, surprise attack, which comes with the camouflage pretty much, and terrain total, which is really cool because in a lot of the resilience operations missions at the moment, there's the terrain type where you could do, you know, the strip in the middle is like terrain total gets a boost or things like that. And I feel like you could potentially benefit from something like a Nightshade, starting 8 inches and then going through that sort of stuff. Nightshade, there's basically 3 main loadouts. You've got the boarding shotgun with shock mines, that's the 36 point version. Then you've got the SMG with drop bears and decharges, 32 points. SMG drop bears, decharges, 35 points. That's the killer hacker version, which is quite cool. I like that one for a different reason. Nightshade Mine Layer, which is actually the version that I really like to play for 32 points, not just because it's the cheapest, but also because it brings a whole bunch of the things I like, which includes a mine for blocking things. And even though they're only shock mines, that's fine. And then decharges SMGs. So I think it's actually the 32.5 SWC mine layer is the one I really like. But the killer hacker is one I think that you shouldn't necessarily sleep on, because you come out of camo, you've then got a couple of options. Depending on who you're facing, obviously a typical camouflage unit could then go out of line of fire, re-camo and do some stuff again. But if you're up against something that has really good discover, then, or even like a fire team with discover +3, and then, you know, something that's got really good whip, what you might want to do instead is go into cyber mask and go into the impersonation state. Yes, you're likely to be discovered, but I feel like the sometimes that's harder to do, harder to discover. It also gives you a bit more impunity to, I feel like, move around than camo necessarily does. And yeah, so that's a good option. Then obviously as a killer hacker, you could disrupt an opponent's life if you've got a hacker wandering around the place. And drop bears are just fun too. So that 35.1 is another one that I would potentially take over the boarding shotgun. Because while, you know, boarding shotguns are good when you get in close, when you're kind of into good boarding shotgun range, you're potentially also in the place where you could be using your martial arts and getting into CC instead. So I think that would be potentially my preference. Nightshade, love it. Let's move on from May's releases to June's releases. So many cool things happening here. And in fact, before I go through all of those, there's something that snuck through the release calendar in May that I do want to mention as well. I don't have it here to show you, but I'm kind of sitting on the fence as to whether I actually spend hard-earned hobby money and buy it myself. And that is the Gamer's Grass Battle Ready bases. Bringing them up on the screen here, they are pre-painted, ready-to-go bases, which can be great. Now, I'm kind of on a pre-painted fan wagon at the moment. The eagle-eyed among you have probably spotted these beautiful terrain sets. I am a huge fan of these pre-painted ones. I'm going to do a full video on them in a bit once I've assembled pretty much the whole set. So I don't want to, I'm just looking at how much I actually have to assemble of this kit. Like, there's so much of this stuff to go through. And the thing is, Micro Art Studio have done such a great job of this terrain that I'm kind of really loving pre-painted because it looks 10 times better than anything I could do. Spoiler alert for the video. And then going to these Gamer's Grass bases, again, straight out of the bat, they probably look better than any base I could ever create. They speed up the time of like getting a model, like one of these really cool new releases from Corvus Belli, and getting them on the table because it's one less thing to do. Looking at a few of them, you've got the Nomads one, you've got the Dunes of Borak, which are Hacker's Alarm themed, Pan-Oceania, kind of like the winter 4 style. I do like the magnet spacing at the bottom. I'm really struggling with getting my magnets into. One of the things I've done recently is I've actually 3D printed a whole bunch of bases because I liked the design, but then that's not really helping with my magnetization, so I'm probably going to have to actually add some metal like magnet pad at the bottom of that to make that work. But these Gamer's Grass ones, it's no such problem, and the detail looks really good too. So yeah, I might be buying some of these a little bit to see what they're about, but also just because they look cool. So let's talk a bit about the June releases that we can expect to see coming up soon. A couple of really good ones here. One of them, Diaphos 14, which is the blocking zone, highlighted mostly by the roller skate girl that everyone is no doubt talking about. Really cool HVT, VIP, so it's going to be probably VIP in the Diaphos game, as they mostly are, and then translatable to an HVT in the actual game itself. Really cool, really out there, just something so different. That's super cool. And then we get the Sonia Lacroix for 012. And then from the Bakunin or the Nomad side of things, we've got Vortex Loop Balboa, which is pretty cool. Again, really nice models there, all of them, pretty cool. And I think this is one where a lot of people who may not have had bought Diaphos sets before are probably going to buy these ones because they just look so darn cool. Then also in the June releases, we have the Aleph Support Pack Beta. This one comes with the net rods, some Yud bots, and an engineer, Sophatech, which I faced in my last game against Bryn, who was playing ISS. And Sophatech was a pain because slowly revealed that she was an engineer and a medic, which is frustrating. The net rods look like they're going to be interesting to put to a base. I really find those fiddly when it's like a single point of contact and it's really thin. I kind of wish Corvus Belli had done slightly bigger connections to the base there, but small gripe, and mostly because of my fiddly fingers. Reinforcements, Jacques Rouant with the AP Spitfire, looks again very cool. And then finally the Libertos with the submachine gun. Hate Libertos, love Libertos. I don't like facing them, but I do like playing them, and the models are cool, like fishmen, just so different. Again, that's where the Corvus Belli world has taken things into a very cool and different direction. But what I want to talk about is the Moran Masai, which I don't think should be classed as a June release. And the reason for that is that I have that Moran Masai set. I received it a year ago, and the only difference is that the Crazy Koalas have had a design update. So the two Moran Masai hunters themselves are in exactly the same as the ones from 2023, but you get some slightly cooler and less fiddly crazy koalas to glue together. So yeah, do you think that counts as a June release? Do you think it's a slight re-release? Is it like an update? Like how do we actually define that one? Yeah, interested to hear your thoughts. What are you excited about from the May releases? What are you going to get your hands on? What are you excited about the June releases? Have you seen the Game of Grass bases? What do you think about that? Always keen to hear your thoughts on the new releases that are coming out, and I will be back soon with another video.